just pressed the button. Let me hop over to my Twitch dashboard and see. Okay, I see all of our lovely faces in the dashboard. Twitch dashboard and see. Okay, I see all of our lovely faces. Okay, could someone say something real quick? Okay, I see
Something
all of our lovely faces. Okay, could someone...
How did that come out?
Say something real quick. Okay, I see
Something
all of our lovely faces. Okay, could someone...
How did that come out?
Say
Hello?
something real quick. Okay, I see
Something
all of our
Yeah, Mike
lovely
is
faces.
speaking. I can't hear him.
Okay, there was some weird output thing that happened with, my window. Is someone else listening to the stream? Like, can you turn the audio on and tell me if you can hear people who aren't me? Hello?
Yeah, I have the stream going now. Is my audio coming out?
Could someone else turn the audio on? Because, like, right now, I'm capturing all my system audio, which includes Twitch if I turn the audio on, and it creates a big mess.
So if somebody's like on Twitch right now, can you hear me just listening to Twitch, for example? Question.
Yeah, yeah. I can't check, because if I check, it'll mess up the stream.
Good. Seems like the stream's working. Nice.
Alright, great. We are, in that case, we are live.
Ah,
Haha. So, hello. Welcome, all of you people who are going to watch this. This is a live stream of a tabletop role-playing game called Sigmata. This signal kills fascists. Before we get started, we have a content warning. This is a game about posing fascist regimes, so there will be depictions of bigotry and violence and other things that might make folk uncomfortable. So viewer discretion is advised. With that said,
We should also note that any similarities to any actual political situations is purely coincidental.
yes, completely coincidental. Or I guess, yeah, for sure. I had the script you made somewhere, and I think I lost it. It's buried in the chat.
That was the gist of it.
Yeah. So in terms, one more thing for introductions. Safety mechanisms for the players. If there's anything that starts happening in the game that you're uncomfortable with and you want to, like, elide or skip over, just put your hand over your camera like this, and that'll be your signal to the rest of us for us to just skip over to the next thing or elide the content. And we can debrief about it in private after the session. With all that said, introductions. Hello. I am going to be your game master for the evening. My name is Michael. My pronouns are he, him, and I am here to be your master of ceremonies. Next to my right on the screen is Nathan. Nathan.
Hello, my name is Nathan. I'm one of the many people who back this game on Kickstarter. And I pitched the idea to stream and podcast a campaign of this game to help put the word out. So thank you guys all for saying yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and just a bit of a note, I'm probably the least experienced tabletop RPG player here, so I apologize if there are times where I seem like an idiot.
No worries, no worries. We are all new to this game, so there should not be any problems. Moving onward to the right, Don, tell us about yourself.
Yes, hello. I am Don. I did not back this on Kickstarter, but the moment that I found out about the project, I knew I had to get involved. Definitely happy. I have my book sitting on my shelf over there, and it was put out for people to play and broadcast and teach others about what this game is about and show them how it's done. I was absolutely all about that. So here I am, ready to boost the signal and punch some fascists.
Awesome. Moving onward to the right on my screen, Chad, who are you?
Hey, how's everyone doing? My name is Chad. However, I'm not Chad Walker, the author of the game. He's known as Chad Prime, and I am other Chad in this community. I'm a long time fan of Chad's previous game, Cryptomancer, in so much as it's been out for a couple of years now. And I was very excited to see Sig started, very excited to back it, and very excited to be playing in this campaign and exploring the space and trying to come to grips with what it means to be an ethical insurgent.
Awesome. All right. So, I just realized I'm only showing a small part of the map. Okay, so our game is set in New Orleans in a grim alternate 1986. What I have here showing on the screen is a map of the city that really more corresponds to the city today, being that I was not even a twinkle in my father's eye in 1986. The city reflected in the game is going to be more of a mirror of modern New Orleans than the city in the 1980s. Our insurgency is based in the 7th Ward, which I'm trying to highlight in the map. You can see it wedged between the fairgrounds and the St. Roch neighborhood on the map. In our last adventure, which we did not broadcast, the receivers, our cybernetic vanguard of the resistance, launched a stealth mission to destroy essentially a regime concentration camp before it received any occupants. They were successful in completing their objective without directly confronting any Freedom Fist, the sort of stormtroopers of the fascist regime occupying the city. And our crew have since been driven back to their base in a warehouse in the 7th Ward. So since y'all left on the mission, or rather, when you left on the mission, the base was pretty bare bones. There was barely any equipment yet set up. It was, sort of very fresh. And since you launched on the mission, you notice when you enter back into the warehouse that there's been some equipment set up, some communications equipment, an arms locker, and various other paraphernalia. There's also more personnel here than had previously been. It seems like perhaps the local resistance was waiting to see how your first mission ended up before committing to the location. Sutherland accompanied you back into the building. Sutherland is a representative of Resistance HQ at large. He is a mid-60s Japanese American. He clearly has some sort of military background that he's not very open with talking about. And he has some kind of relationship with the old men, but otherwise he does not have any real affiliation with the factions. He's a representative of the resistance movement at large. Also, now joining you in this sort of cavernous warehouse are the four representatives of the local resistance factions. There is Midas, who represents the Makers. He's a sort of thin, squirrely-looking lawyer who is more of a caretaker for the Makers' funds than he is an actual decision maker. He's here to make sure their investment is worthwhile. Standing, sort of keeping their distance from Midas, is Mayday, who is a young woman who came here, you think, from the Midwest, as a labor organizer, and since being driven underground by the regime, she has become the local representative of the party, the sort of far-left branch of the resistance. Across from them is Rougarou, who is a Acadian fellow in his 40s. You know that he has some sort of military or police background, and is the local representative of the old men, the sort of libertarian militia arm of the resistance. And then, speaking with Rougarou in hushed tones, is a sort of elderly fellow in a Catholic priest's uniform, who you know as Samaritan. So, with that said of the personalities who are not players in the warehouse, Nathan, tell us about your receiver.
My receiver's name, his name is Adam Thoreau, and he's a Caucasian male in his late 20s, 5'6", and dark hair, relatively thin guy. His receiver handle is Concerned Citizen, and he is a citizen journalist from a working class family who writes newspaper articles, workplace and human rights abuses in the regime. Of course, it's hard to get those published in newspapers, so he self-publishes them on pamphlets that he distributes around the city. Also included with those pamphlets are the number of a BBS, where people who are smart enough to decode these messages can go there and they can read his past stories, and they can post tips for him to with humanity, or more specifically the regime, is that his parents were striking workers who were rounded up by the regime and ultimately shipped to who knows where. So he writes, he believes in the truth, he believes in exposing the truth, and he makes it his personal mission. His core stats are 2 for guile, 3 for judgment, and ghost mesh, where you roll out at the start of each combat round, boot disc to the beginning of a scene, And his subroutines are cathode claymore. You can cause any nearby screen to explode. Call collector. You, any you can hear any call made on any phone line as long as you're touching the wire connected to that phone line. Transistor ear. You can pick wireless immediate vicinity. And grid lash. All he has to do is touch electrical infrastructure and move, and he can move the cabling like. And do I need to go through everything, or?
No, don't feel free to feel free not to go through all the little mechanical nitty-gritty until we need it.
Yeah, but those are basically the core stats about him. Like when the signal first hit and he awoken as a receiver, as he was literally hearing every wire. He was hearing his head, and he didn't know. He didn't find out what was really happening until he accidentally blew up every television screen within like a 5-foot radius.
Cool. So yeah, while you're doing your intros, I'm showing your character sheets on the stream, which is sort of like a good quick summary, I feel like. So y'all don't feel the need to like go through every little bit of the character. I'll be trying to like show as much of like the numbers as are relevant on my screen while we're doing stuff. All right. Don, tell us about your receiver.
So my receiver's name is Marcel Elijah Thibodeau, but he goes by the handle of Monte. He is a Caucasian male, about in his mid-30s. He's usually very well groomed, very thick, dark, curly hair. Considering that the receivers are coming back after a very successful mission, he's got a pretty cheeky cigarette just hanging loosely from his lips, as he almost always does, and a pen twirling it in between his fingers. Marcel joined the resistance on a somewhat similar path to Concerned Citizen. He was actually a news anchor for the regime. He that they told him to repeat, and like a good loyal journalist, he did so. However, his editor eventually was taken away for publishing seditious material, and this caused Montag to dig a little bit deeper into what was going on with the and it was that eventually led him to rebel and join the resistance, and it was only after that that he actually received the signal and became a receiver, part of the cybernetic vanguard. And that's Montag.
I should be actually unmuted this time. Is there anything you want to say about Montag's subroutines before you move on?
Sure. So, as a journalist, the majority of Montag's subroutines are actually all about influencing and messing with electronic devices and radio waves that are nearby. He can cause electric devices bolt and go haywire. He can control radio waves to make them capable of knocking things over or ripping through buildings and steel. He can broadcast subliminal messages through radio waves to get people to do what he wants them to do. And ultimate, the greatest power that he could possibly achieve with the signal, turning radio waves into invisible blades, using them to cut down and in the.
Cool. All right, Chad, let's hear about your receiver.
Sure. I'll be playing Freddie Lord, whose handle is Shades. Freddie is like early 20s, Maybe he just graduated with a business degree. Maybe he dropped out and didn't tell his parents yet. But while he was out drinking, partying, something, the signal hit him. And after surviving that and kind of recognizing he always kind of knew his parents were full of it, the regime's kind of full of it, he figured that he was probably should join the resistance, but doesn't really have any idea what that means. I mean, he's privileged, cishet, white male, and while he disagrees and kind of has an innate sense of the wrongness of his parents' view towards other people, his powers are still very much aligned with that sense of privilege and a blind, oblivious ambition. So you'll see him moving far ahead of the group. You'll see him trying to get places where he's not supposed to be, just on kind of like the belief that he should be there. This should be easy for him. His powers are all about getting him out in front, allowing him to survive for a turn or two at exposure 10, and to just be wherever he's not supposed to be, kind of like proving his worth. Like, oh, of course I can do this. Of course I'm part of the resistance, covering up his doubts about the same thing. Looking forward to a lot of critical botches so we can disillusion Freddie a little bit and help him understand what he's gotten into and why it's a good place for him, not just a place where he can, excel or succeed in the ways that he thinks he should. So all of his subroutines, his ultimate subroutine, like I said, they're all about moving ahead, warping through things, surviving, and then kind of like swapping places with people to get wherever he thinks he can kind of like show off how much of a great receiver he is. Because of course he's a receiver, because he doesn't know what else to do.
Awesome. So as you are all entering this warehouse, there's sort of like, not sort of like, so Samaritan, the priest, is on a phone. It's sort of like a landline has been dragged out to the table with a long length of phone wire, and he's speaking with someone in hushed tones, and he puts the receiver down and ends the call, and looks up and says, "Well, just got an interesting call. Did we have any ops in outside of Mid-City tonight?" And he sort of looks to Sutherland, who shakes his head, and the other members of the resistance leadership all follow suit. And Samaritan nods and says, "Well, apparently there was also a disturbance in the bywater. Some sort of improvised explosive device took out a decent bit of storefronts." And he sort of looks at the receivers. If it wasn't us, then I'm not sure who it could be.
It could be somebody trying to make us look bad. We did just blow up a regime installation. Samaritan nods, and that's possible. The acquaintance I just spoke with made it sound like they suspected it was one of you, a receiver.
Another receiver that Resistance HQ sent down here?
And Sutherland speaks up at that and says, as far as I know, all the receivers Resistance HQ sent to the city are accounted for. no one else was authorized for an operation. I need to make some.
There's the other. This could have been a receiver who had just awakened as a result of our triggering the signal during our op.
Sutherland nods, and sort of a Samaritan sort of like fidgets with his collar nervously and says, "Is that possible?"
There's a lot about the signal we still don't quite understand. It's certainly possible, and it's certainly a result that we should be looking into.
So Mayday speaks up at this. She's a 30-something-year-old Hispanic woman from somewhere in the Midwest, and she says, "Well, if that's the case and there's a new receiver, then we need to go find them before the regime does." And
we absolutely do.
I mean, like, the regime has receivers too?
We call them jammers.
Whether they have them or not, I mean, do you seriously
great.
want any of us to be taken by the regime? You have any idea what they would do to us?
No. So we should go out there, right? I mean, shouldn't we just go out there?
So Sutherland, at the talk of a jammer being deployed, Sutherland speaks up and he just says, "The kind of destruction those things deal, just collateral damage, it would be disastrous for the regime to deploy one stateside. It can't be a jammer. I mean, the entire Bywater would be on fire if it were a jammer."
Then it's got to be one of us. And if it's one of us, we need to get to them before the regime does.
That we do.
Sutherland nods and says, "I certainly agree." And sort of scanning the rest of the resistance leadership present, it definitely looks like Samaritan and Mayday agree. And if Midas or Rougarou disagree, they're being close-mouthed about it right now. Midas in general looks way out of his depth, and Rougarou doesn't seem to be voicing any like kind of strong opinion. He's sort of just like nodding, not like in agreement, but just sort of like, I understand what people are saying. And so Sutherland says, turns to Samaritan and says, "Do you have an actual address?" And Samaritan gives a cross street in the Bywater. So, I suppose that means to the action van, Sutherland says, and sort of sighs the sigh of a man who is playing chauffeur.
I'm gonna make sure on the way out to ask Midas for a light, and then assuming that his lighter is great, I'm just gonna take that, keep walking, and I notice he's got a great raincoat that's hanging by the door, and we're just gonna pick that up too.
Okay, so Midas looks a little like dejected that you took his lighter, and I think he's too busy like talking to the other leaders to notice that you stole his jacket.
It's a coat.
Coat, right? Overcoat. Yeah, he's definitely got like a pretty nice gray overcoat that was hanging, for sure.
Super. It's now a peripheral.
Great. All right, so you pile into Sutherland's van, and he starts heading to the address that Samaritan indicated. And like as you're driving, he flips on a police scanner that's sort of like installed into the van's dashboard. And there's all kinds of chatter that the Freedom Fist are putting out. There's a lot of like emergency response stuff in terms of like putting out the fire in Mid City. Doesn't sound like it spread beyond the facility you exploded just recently. But there's also more than a bit of police chatter about a disturbance in the Bywater. It sounds like Samaritan exaggerated the damage a little bit. There was a concussive explosion, like the cops are reporting, the Freedom Fist are reporting that there was a concussive explosion that shattered a bunch of windows and knocked out the power in like a 3-block radius. But it didn't actually cause any like really serious damage. Just enough to like get people's attention. So you make your way to the Bywater, which is a neighborhood adjacent to the river. It's sort of downriver from the French Quarter. And it's largely, aside from storefronts on St. Claude Avenue, it's largely residential. It's a lot of old shotgun-style houses. The Bywater is a neighborhood that has been historically an immigrant neighborhood and a working-class neighborhood. At one point, there was a large Polish population here, then German, and then African-American, which is sort of the predominant population that lives there now. And sort of like just off of St. Claude, north of the Bywater, so sort of in the St. Claude neighborhood, Sutherland pulls over and says, with all the Freedom Fists running around in that neighborhood, you're going to do better on foot than in this van. I figure you try to go in quiet, like back at the base, and that's your best chance of finding this guy.
Yeah, don't get caught.
Don't get caught. I'll be listening on the police scanner, and he sort of reaches into his jacket, his like military surplus jacket, and he pulls out a flare gun and offers it, not to any of you in particular, but just sort of offers it out and says, "Fire this when you need the signal up."
I take the flare gun.
All right. Concerned citizen takes the flare gun. Good luck, he says.
Thank you.
It'll be fine.
Okay. So, you file out of the van into the oppressive heat of New Orleans in June. The rain from earlier has stopped, leaving a disgusting, humid mess. Almost feels like you're moving through, like, hot syrup. It's so humid. That said, I'm going to move us over to the evasion screen. So, Sigmata is played in... Well, the bulk of the gameplay occurs in structured scenes of conflict of some sort. Tonight we'll be starting off with a scene of evasion, which depicts our receivers either trying to stealthily evade obstacles as they proceed towards their goal, or it can also be used for high-speed chases. So, turns go in two phases. First, the Game Master increases all the receiver's exposure by an amount equal to the scene's alarm, and then they narrate how the conditions of the scene are posing risks to the players. After that, the players, in whatever order they wish, determine how they are addressing the challenges in the scene, rolling the ops that correspond to the tactic they selected, and then after that narrating the effect of their roll based on the number of successes they get. If they roll a lot of successes, they get to narrate total success without any input from me. If they don't roll a lot of successes, or even if they get negative results, then I, the Game Master, predominantly narrate the outcomes. So, we're going to set what the waypoints are real quick. So the location is the Bywater streets. The first goal is going to be evading Freedom Fist patrols, and the second waypoint, the second position, is going to be locating the receiver. It's only going to be a 10 waypoint scene. So this is a pretty simple scene of evasion. So, first things first, everyone's exposure increases. And just moved a waypoint. Hang on. Everyone's exposure increases to 2. Oh, I moved y'all over to the evasion screen. Yes, I did. Okay. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to do that. Or that I did, yeah. So y'all make your way to sort of an alley next to a building on St. Claude Avenue, which is it's a big 2-lane avenue that separates the St. Claude neighborhood from the Bywater. There's a lot of storefronts here where there are hardware stores and record stores and like small like neighborhood places. There's a few bars, and you can see that you're very close to where the new receiver first activated their powers, because like the windows of the storefronts on both sides of the streets are blown out completely, and you can see that there's a power line down. Unfortunately, you see no fewer than 2 Freedom Fist armored personnel carriers on this block, sort of one on either side of the street. You don't see the full complement of Freedom Fist near them, but you do see a couple of officers with their masks on and their assault rifles, standing in the middle of the neutral ground, which is New Orleans talk for the like green space that like in an avenue that separates two lanes of the road. So you see two Freedom Fists hanging out in the neutral ground, talking softly to each other. And in the APC on the Bywater side of St. Claude, the like top hatch is open, and there's a receiver on a like vehicle-mounted machine gun who is scanning the horizon. What do you do?
Is there a receiver on that machine gun or a gunner?
Freedom Fist. I'm sorry, did I misspeak?
Oh, you said receiver, so I thought things got really interesting.
God, no. I'm sorry. That's me not having enough coffee today, I guess, or having too much. No, Freedom Fist. It's all Freedom Fist. There are no.
All cop.
All right. So what do y'all do? So there's 3 Freedom Fist on the scene, 2 in the neutral ground, and 1 on the machine gun in the APC. None of them see you yet.
I'm gonna try and sneak past them.
All right. So are you? Which tactic are you using?
I'm using the sneak tactic.
All right.
That's a guile roll.
Mm-hmm. So the way that sneaking works specifically, and that guile ops work generally, is the receiver is going to roll their guile. So 1d10 for each of their ranks in guile, and then they're going to add in d6s until the total number of dice they roll is 5. And then anything that is a 6 or higher is going to be counted as a success and is going to progress their waypoints on the track, the evasion track. And any ones they roll will cancel successes. So, let's see the roll.
I'm gonna roll the 2d10s. And there's
A 1 and an 8.
So that cancels out. Ouch.
But you still got 3d6.
And I got 1 success.
Alright, so at a total of 1 success, Concerned Citizen is going to get 1 waypoint. So they progress sort of 1 space on the evasion track. And Nathan gets to narrate how their receiver progresses through the scene, and then I am going to add a purely narrative catch, downside to the action of the scene, that then everyone else will have to narrate around. It'll inform the fictional space, but doesn't actually affect the mechanics yet. So, Nathan, how does this look?
Since this is a relatively small success, I just start walking casually, like I'm a local in this particular part of New Orleans, and don't even bother to look in the general direction of the Freedom Fist soldiers that are near me.
Okay, so you step out and start crossing the street. And you happen to, like, just catch a moment when none of them are looking directly at you, for a second. But then one of the guys, the neutral ground, looks up and sees you, and sort of pushes the other guy out of the way and starts walking towards you. With his, like, hand up as if he's about to, like, say something. But before he can get anything out, the next person has a chance to do a thing.
The next player or the next
The next
person?
player. The next player. And I should say for all of our lovely audience that there isn't any prescribed order in which the players take their actions. Only that the GM, at the start of each turn, the GM modifies exposure, and then the players can act in whatever order they want to. Exposure is bad because when a player ends their turn with 10 or more exposure, they are removed from the scene unless they reboot. And in evasion or intrigue scenes, the scene also fails if they let themselves be taken out of the scene. So that's not, unless they reboot, it's not or unless they have rebooted, it's not a permanent death. It is a fail state where the scene stops progressing for them, or for everyone, for evasion. So for evasion, narratively, the scene failing would be like these Freedom Fist realize that you're with the Resistance and start trying to detain you. But we're not there yet, so the next player can take their tactic. I see it's a standoff.
I'm fine. I can rush. I'm ready. Let's roll rush.
All right.
Rush is an aggro roll that guarantees me at least 5 waypoints at the cost of taking on another 5 exposure. And then any other bonus successes I get, add on to that. And we'll see if things go really well or really poorly. Maybe we'll work in a peripheral or two. Let's roll.
All right, go for it.
Oof. All right.
So that's
Ouch.
that's a -1 success. So that is a failure. You still get at least 4
So
waypoints.
far, I haven't narrated my move yet.
True. Go
right?
for it.
So
Yeah.
Let me narrate and bring in my stuff. So, cinch my coat, I pop my collar, and the big plan is just to walk straight through the guards, right through a gap, up the stairs to the door. It's going to be open. I'm just going to walk straight through to where we need to be on the backside on the other street. Of course, like in popping the collar and cinching the belt, putting on the shades, and walking, something's got to give, and that's the feet. So we're going to get rid of a botch with my coat peripheral, just because I got I'm tripping with like swagger here, so the guard what? But I do kind of like get ahead a little bit, but also kind of like bumble right into where the guards are all looking now, rather than getting any further with my plan. So we'll we'll ignore one of those botches with the peripheral. The other 2 will cancel out, and I'll just move ahead 5 for 5 exposure.
All right. So Shades jumps up 5. And your exposure increases to 7.
Yep.
So okay. So yeah, you walk like right in front of the Freedom Fist guy who is going to stop Concerned Citizen, and doesn't do anything to stop. He lets you walk past and is completely distracted by your swagger. And he sort of calls after you. Watch out, citizen. There's live wires. Wait, no, go left. As he sort of like directs you to walk around the downed power line. As he's just like thinks you're supposed to be there, or thinks you think you're supposed to be there, which is what really matters. All right, Don, what is Montag up to?
Seeing as Shades just incurred a lot of exposure, Montag is going to put his best ability to use and use the deny tactic, trying to reduce his exposure Shades' exposure in order to keep him down.
All right, go for it.
So
Oh.
that's 4 successes. So I am going to process a valor subroutine that basically makes it available once the signal goes up. Does anyone else have any valor subroutines at all?
No.
I think we went over this last time. I think you're all pretty.
I am the only valor.
Pretty specialized. Okay, so Shades' exposure goes down to 3. So what does this look like?
I would say at that point, seeing that 2 of my allies were just waltzing into the middle of the street, Montag is immediately pulling at his hair like, what the fuck is wrong with these guys? But deciding that the only solution here is just to give the fist something else to distract them, to focus on instead of his comrades, Montag will look around really quick and see a bottle, a loose bottle that's been laying around on the ground, and he picks it up, hefts it a little bit, figures, he's got a pretty good arm, and he wings it over the building, over towards the other side of the APCs, get a noise and something else for the fist patrol to distract themselves with.
Totally. They are all thoroughly distracted. They jerk their heads at the noise, away from your friends and from you.
And with that, in being the case, I will process the wall of sound subroutine.
That sounds ominous. Okay. So top of the round, all of your exposures increase by 2. So while the fist seemed to be letting Shades pass and have been distracted from concerned citizen, the breaking of the glass bottle has put them on edge, and you all suspect they could be a split second from detaining, or attempting to detain you all, if they are given enough time to think about it. So, with that said, what do you do?
I'll go. I'm gonna go to Plan B, which is to insist that Plan A is gonna work, and I'm gonna roll aggro again.
Okay.
Go for it. Woof. Okay, it's the
So
same.
again, popping the collar, ignoring that botch, and so there's a success there on top of the other 5. So that's gonna put me at 6 and out of the scene. So I might be drawing a lot of attention from these guys, and maybe the door wasn't open and I kind of forced it. But I'm going straight through that house, out the back door, right into the other street, expecting to find this receiver all on my own. Now, I am going to be at 10 exposure, so error handling is going to kick in, and I'm going to process switching station, and liquid cooling is going to kick in, so I can survive to the next round. Mechanically, I don't know what that means. If it means I would be out, I'm going to reboot.
Yeah.
Because I'm simultaneously exiting and continuing.
So yeah,
we do not make it through this round on our next turn, which is definitely not going to happen.
That's true. Somebody could bring me down this round,
Yeah.
and then we punt on having to figure out that
We're going to have to bring you down a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the other option is that you let the next round, like, instead of rebooting, you just call it a fail scene, and narratively you're in a position to have lucked into finding the receiver when the shooting starts. But
Well, see if somebody brings me down.
yeah.
And otherwise,
But like, yeah, for sure. So yeah, you like walk through like you walk across the street and just like go through one of the blasted out storefronts. And like you stop like right out the back door and you turn to your right and there is this woman like huddled behind a trash can, and you see that like her well, first off, like you can see through she hasn't received the gift of the stranger yet, right? So you see that she has the like sort of like electric panel type seams in her face and musculature that show that she's a receiver. And you also see that like a bunch of electrical wire from the power line and like scrap metal from like loose electronics and stuff has like formed a shell around her right arm that's sort of like this big like clawed arm. And she's not receiving the signal now, and so this is just like a bunch of scrap weighing her down, but it's still like physically clinging to her, the sort of like detritus of her first signal. Your exposure's real high, so I think narratively what's happening is one of the police officers is following you and being like, wait, you can't go there! Not yet alarmed at your presence, but definitely in the, like, this civilian can't be here frame of mind. So, who's going to go next?
I'll go next. So, out of, no pun intended, but out of concern for Shades, I am going to roll for the deny tactic and take some of the exposure off of him.
Okay. Go for it.
So my valor is 3. Well, no, my judgment is 3. So, and once again, 0 successes. And I have a failure.
Okay, so that's -1 successes.
Is that a judgment or a valor roll? It should have been a valor roll.
Yeah, valor roll. Like my judgment and valor are the same score, both
Gotcha.
3.
Okay. Do you have any peripherals for that tactic?
I kind of do. I do have a tape recorder, so I could go up to the officer that's pursuing Shades and break out in full journalist mode and demand answers for what exactly happened in this area.
Okay, so... Alright, so that knocks it down to a net 0 successes, so it's just a normal failure instead of a kinda nasty failure.
Right.
So the way that this works in the way the game handles the narration is, with your peripheral in mind, I narrate what the failure looks like, and then you get to add a silver lining. So you failed to remove any of the exposure from Shades. So I think, like, you go and step out in front of the Freedom Fist officer and pull out your tape recorder, and I think he sees it, and sort of he says muffled through his mask, oh, hell no, I am not dealing with the press. And he just, like, pushes you out of the way and keeps doing what he was doing. Like he thinks if he just ignores you, you'll go away. And what is the silver lining you would like to add to that?
At least the silver lining is that he didn't break my nose. I'm not physically injured, or like too bad. hurt or roughed up, my tape recorder is still intact.
That's fair. That is entirely fair. All right, Don, what's Montag up to?
Seeing as this is going sideways pretty quickly, Montag is also going to rush at this point and just try and take advantage of the fact that his other receivers have the Freedom Fist pretty thoroughly distracted, and he's just going to try and blitz through across the street and to the buildings.
All right, and I'm just going to straight reboot to save us from the scene failure.
All right.
But I think after this round, though, I might just ignite the signal and
That would be great.
because Montag is going to be at, Montag is going to be at a 9. Montag is actually going to hit 10 at the next round. I'm going to hit 6.
Okay.
I can ignore that botch. At the very least, I can ignore the botch.
The dice are not being very
Is your
friendly
memory,
tonight.
is your memory an aggro memory?
No, my memory is not an aggro memory.
Fair enough.
It is a judgment memory. But I can't ignore the botch. Montag has a workout mixtape that during these types of scenes he likes to hop on his Walkman and slip on his headphones and pump himself up for getting past patrol. So Eye of the Tiger gone over his tape recorder, and he's just hustling as fast as he can past the Stern Citizen and over towards where he saw Shades go.
Nice. So for our listeners at home, the way that our receivers are ignoring these botches are with peripherals, which are basically their characters' personal belongings. Each peripheral is linked to a specific tactic, and when they can incorporate their peripheral into their narration, they get to ignore a botch to that tactic. So Montag puts on his mixtape and sprints away from the Freedom Fist. Draws a lot of attention doing it, and the Fist are now in this sort of confused state where they're definitely queuing in to you guys are real suspicious, but aren't yet drawing their weapons and shooting. Although that's coming soon. So I believe that's top of the round. So Shades, your blade lets you sit at 10 for a round, right?
So you made this a 10-point scene. So I'm out of the round. I just rebooted to keep us from entering combat. Still out of the round because I made it past.
That's fair.
So my subroutine that I processed also is just jank now. So, oh no, I didn't. I was thinking about one, or did I? Whatever. Anyhow, I'm out of the scene.
Okay.
But the signal has gone up for the other two.
Yeah, I've now pulled out the flare gun.
In front of the Fist?
No. The fist is absolutely. I get away from the Fist. Especially the guy who pushed me down. I go into a nearby back alley. I pull out the flare gun and I ignite it, and then run the fuck away before anyone can see me having fired the flare. The resistance HQ sees the flare and starts the signal.
Alright, for listeners at home, the signal is the source of the receiver's power. It is a number sequence that broadcasts over FM radio, and basically turns the receivers into a cybernetic superhero. So now they have... Well, first off, now their exposure is all set back to 0. Benefits of... with the exception of Shades, he's no longer in the scene. Um, so that all sets to 0. Shades is out of the scene, so it doesn't affect him. And they now have access to their processed subroutines. So, yeah, there's one police officer, one Freedom Fist officer rather, who is pursuing Shades in the direction that they exited from, and another officer is still in the neutral ground, who is sort of unholstering their sidearm. Oh, that's a good point, chat. We'll get to that in a second. So the Freedom Fist neutral ground unholsters their sidearm. They're sort of leaving their long arm across their back and unholstering their service pistol. And sort of moving to flank, to like give cover to his partner who is pursuing Shades. And the guy in the APC ducks down and shuts the hatch, and you all have a sneaking suspicion that they're either responding to another APC that spotted the flare, or going to radio in what's going on. So now it's top of the turn. What do y'all do? Also, you all see, all of you, before we go on, all of you see, like, a flash of electric light that's, like, very bright from behind the building that Shades went in. And Shades, you see the, like, seams in this woman's face start to light up as the signal goes up. And, like, the trash can she was hiding behind starts to, like, melt into her other arm and, like, form armor around her. Sort of like, the end of Akira, almost.
That is cool.
Yeah. And, like, you see like, other bits of metal in the alley, like, vibrating and, like, sort of, like, glowing with heat, and it's just, like, trying to pull towards her.
That sounds good. I think an alignment probably so right now.
So, Montag and Concerned Citizen, what are y'all gonna do?
Alright. Alright, since my exposures, I'm gonna move. I'm gonna make an aggression roll. I've got 5. My core processor is 5, so I can roll 5 d10s for that. And I'm guaranteed 5 waypoints no matter what happens.
Go for it.
And I got 2 successes. And no botches at all. So that gives me a total of 7 waypoints on this turn.
And your exposure increases to 5.
Yeah. My exposure increases to 5, but I have now made it through the first objective of evading the Freedom Fist patrols. So
Yeah,
all I
I think they take the
Shades got to
exposure from the beginning as well. So they go to they take the 2 exposure, and then they make their moves.
Right.
my
right.
exposure should be 3. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Alright. What is Montag up to?
Montag is just gonna hustle along. He's still got Survivor blaring in his headphones, and he's just gonna keep moving.
Right on.
Once again, thanks to his peripheral, he can ignore that botch. So that is 2 successes on a rush tactic, and that should clear him out of the scene.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, Montag manages to make it to the back alley and witnesses this woman blaring with the power of the signal as all the bits of scrap metal in the alley are, like, magneting onto her and forming this awful suit of like garbage armor and claws. She looks like very distressed that this is happening, because until a couple hours ago, she was a normal person with no radio cybernetic superpowers. So justifiably, she's freaking out. She's not shouting, but you can see that she's like hyperventilating, and her eyes are like currently backlit, with the power of the signal, are like flickering, like kind of like she's in REM sleep almost. It is disturbing. So it is the top of the next round. Concerned citizen. Your exposure increases to 9. You have just 3 more waypoints to get. Huh?
My waypoints, because the 7, because I gained 7 with the aggression roll. I already had 1 from before.
Oh, should you be at 8?
It should be at 8.
Okay, I missed that. Okay, so you have 2 more waypoints left.
Yeah.
All right. So you are at 9 exposure. So the Freedom Fist, like you're in the building, right? You're heading towards where Shades went. But you can hear the Freedom Fist outside, like shout. They're yelling now. They see the like glow from behind the building. You can hear one of them is definitely radioing in, like, we have a 404, and they shut out the cross street. Backup requested. What do you do?
If I were to roll aggression again, would that automatically get me caught, or?
You would have to reboot. So, like, you can say you succeed the scene, but you'll have to reboot, which will make you vulnerable for the next scene, to permanent character removal.
Just sneak. Just sneak. It's only 2.
Yeah. Yeah, my problem is that I only have 2 guile for that.
And
It's okay.
This haven't been the greatest.
You just need to. Do you have a memory?
I kind of do. So you know what? I'll roll for the guile then.
All right.
All right. All or nothing. Oh.
So that's 3 successes.
3 successes.
Man, if you had a library, that'd be 5 successes.
So I make it through the scene.
Yeah. What does it look like as you epically succeed on this roll?
I keep on running from where I stopped. From where I left off. I just keep going. I catch up with Shades and Montag, and I see the new receiver.
Okay, so I actually forgot a detail here, real quick. Normally, this was the second turn the signal was lit, right? Or was it the first? My memory is fuzzy.
First turn. This was the first.
Okay.
Wars takes place.
Okay, so the scene is over.
Yes.
So the next scene is, I believe, going to be convincing this woman to come with you, who is currently glowing with the signal, in a way that's very, very obvious. And y'all don't have... Okay, so actually there's 2 options. You can spend time trying to talk her down into like coming with you willingly. In which case, depending on the outcome of the scene, like you will have to like the Freedom Fist will have time to get up on you, no matter what. So there'll be a 3rd scene of combat if you try to talk to her. Um, alternately, you could try and just like she's glowing with the signal, but she doesn't know how to control her abilities yet. So, being that the signal is up, you could just like grab her and try to drag her back to Sutherland's van, and just do another scene of evasion. It is up to you how you approach this.
Montag would not want to be acting like the regime and just throwing someone over our shoulder and carry them out unwillingly.
Yeah.
So,
We are not the regime. We don't want people coming with us unwillingly if we can help it.
I'm just freaking out.
Okay.
She's like exploding with light and garbage.
Yeah. So basically, we'll have a scene of intrigue then, as you try to convince her to come with you. The signal's up, so she can also like tell that the three of you are receivers. But she doesn't know what receivers are, or if she does know what receivers are, she knows it in the context of regime propaganda. So, if anything, she either doesn't know what's happening, or she thinks you're a bunch of like Soviet super spies that are here to destroy America. So it's going to take some convincing. I'm going to do some quick page foo real quick to set up the intrigue.
So if you're going to keep the signal up between scenes, we still lose our process subroutines because it's a new scene, correct?
I don't remember what the rules of the game say specifically about this. But in terms of like the temporal proximity between the scenes, I think it makes sense for you to keep your process subroutines. So the folks at home can see me copying and pasting over. Oh, did I miss the names? Setting up the page real quick. I think I didn't get everything I wanted to. So yeah, I'm just going to bring you over to the intrigue page. Everyone. So let's see if this one did it. Huzzah! Except it didn't grab Montag's name.
censorship to me.
Influential for the regime to let your name be out there.
Hang on. Copy. Paste. Okay, so intrigue works kind of like evasion, except instead of making waypoint progression through a physical space, your successes will go towards talking points. So points you need to make in the intrigue to get your way. And your way is presently convincing this person to leave with you peacefully and just not freaking out. Instead of there being what does evasion call it? Instead of there being alarm that represents the awareness of guards and security systems, there is pressure, which in this scene will represent this woman's preconceptions about super-powered cyborgs. So I want to take a moment to sort of like talk out of character with all of you, to determine what you think your agendas are. Like, what are your stated goals for this interaction?
My stated goals would be just to convince her to come safely. That coming with us is the safest option for her, and as opposed to being exposed as by the regime, where they will most likely and make her into a jammer.
Okay, so is your main... I guess this is mostly like narrative fluff, which will be incorporated into your narration. So let's say that we'll stick with one agenda. We're gonna keep the scene pretty simple, and we'll say that your agenda is just to convince her that you're friendly.
Good enough.
Yeah. And it's going to overlap the space on the board a little bit. Oh, also, I forgot to turn off the grid on this page, so let me do that real quick. Goodbye, Mr. Grid. Okay. And we're going to say this is, we'll stick with 10 as the magic number for the night. So we'll say this is a 10 segment talking point. No, wait, there's 3 of you, and you'll need to increase the talking point. Let's say it's actually a 20. It's a 20 segment talking point. Let's try it out.
So now do each of our successes collectively feed into one set of talking points?
Yes. Yeah. So instead of in evasion, each of you has to progress through the scene separately. In intrigue, all of your successes are applied towards the same goal, the same track. So at the start of the scene, everyone's exposure increases to 2. Actually, the signal, this is the second turn, the signal is up. Chat just had a great suggestion for the way the pressure manifests. Yeah, that's awesome. But the first thing that happens, this is technically like the second turn that the signal's up, so we're gonna move to the war room real quick and talk about signal wars.
Okay.
So signal wars is an abstraction of
Oh, is Chad Prime watching?
Yeah, Chad Prime is in chat. The author of the game is listening in. Hi, Chad.
Oh, hello.
So, Signal Wars is an abstraction of the efforts of the Resistance to keep the signal up. The Resistance broadcasts the signal from pirate radio stations or bounces it through repeater towers. And the regime is constantly trying to jam the signal, take down pirate radio stations, and knock down repeaters. So basically, we're going to roll a d6, and if it is higher than the signal strength, which is presently 3, then the signal goes down for the turn, and we move the... we move the Signal Wars down a space. If the roll is under 3, or 3 or under, then the signal stays up for a round. If the signal stays up for 3 consecutive rounds, then there is a signal surge, which drops everyone's exposure to 0 again, and processes everyone's subroutines. So, that said, I'm going to make the roll. And let's see how this goes. Alas, that is a 4.
Ouch.
So the signal drops for a turn. Tread carefully. So although that is an interesting narrative bit. So basically, the woman stops glowing quite so much for briefly as you all feel the signal leave. The light is sort of fading from her a little more slowly than it is from you, and the scrap metal and wire is still clinging to her. She's clearly like retaining more of this power than is normal or probably healthy. But she does gain a moment of coherence, and you all just hear her, like, whimper, like, I've never been to Russia, what's happening? She's clearly very distressed, by what is still happening to her. How are you going to calm her down?
Montag will step forward. Firstly, my pressure actually only goes up by 1. Montag has an Elysian mesh that makes it where he reduces his pressure by 1 at the start of every intrigue scene.
Or turn, right?
Yes. Yes, 1 per round.
Yeah.
And I am going to use the snoop tactic, and then try and just very gently begin this whole process of talking her down.
All right.
So that is a guile roll with my 3 guile. Here we go. And
All right. Do you have any peripherals or memories to put towards this?
I don't have a memory because my memory is tied to judgment, and I have a peripheral. I'm just not really sure how to work it in here.
Okay. What is your peripheral?
Montag carries around a notebook and pen from his time as a journalist, and he's basically taken to writing down and recording pretty much anything that makes him think might be useful in the future.
Okay, is there something that might be in the contents of the notebook that could help you here?
Possibly. If anything, the broadcasting station that he worked for would have been local to Nolan's. He probably jotted down a lot of the things that happened to his editor. And considering people tend to trust their local news, maybe he can kind of show her that and flip through that really quickly to be like, look, I'm a local too. No, I've never been to Russia, and try and get on her good side by saying that, this doesn't happen to bad people. What you're going through is not normal, but it's definitely going to be bad for you if the ones coming from the APCs find you. And I know that because I've seen it happen to good people before.
Okay. That's great. So that peripheral knocks out one of your botches.
Yes.
But you're still a net -1 success. So one failure net. So you tell her all of that. And she doesn't scream or like panic more. But you get the sense that, she's not hearing you. She's blinking and looking at you strangely. And all 3 of you realize that because she doesn't know your handles, Now she sees you as normal people, and she had just seen you as receivers like her, so she maybe thinks that she's hallucinating or something else very strange is happening. Like, you hear her sort of mutter to herself, this is just a dream. This has to be a dream. It can't be real. Who next?
I'll take it.
Yeah, okay. I'm looking through and deciding what I'm going to do.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and snoop as well.
All right.
Excellent. Oh,
That's amazing.
so, Shades is shaken by this too, by memory after this. Like, seeing someone go through is not the same as like going through it for him, and like also a little bit freaked out by this. Maybe not to the extent, of course, that the new receiver is, but the way he's going to snoop is like he's going to keep trying to move around to find a line of sight through all the trash and the exoskeleton up to this woman's eyes as they dart around, and she tries to take this all in and process it or deny it, and just kind of like a lot of doublespeak, a lot of like it's okay, like this happened to me, they'll help you, pointing to the other ones, they help me, listen, we'll help you out of this, and like point to the stuff, we'll help you out of this, but they're gonna kill you while you're in it, pointing back to the APCs in the street. They're just gonna kill you while you're still in it. You gotta come with us.
Yeah.
And just like hope that works. And I'll process switching station up.
Okay. Cool. And yeah, when you like gesture to indicate that you're talking about the Freedom Fist, like you hear sirens like in the distance, and like approaching closer to sort of like nail down the point.
Okay.
All right. Concerned citizen.
All right, I'm also going to try the snoop tactic, and just, she thinks she's dreaming. My tactic is I'm going to say, yeah, I didn't think that it was real either. I thought that I was hearing a million voices at once all around me when I first received the signal, and I didn't think it was real until all the TV screens around me blew up, and it turned out it was my doing. So I say that ahead of time. What's my guile again? Yeah, 2. At 1 success.
All right. So we're currently at 5 talking points. So yeah, she's still. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, since we're at the start of a new scene, I use my Blade boot disk to boot up transistor ear in case the signal restarts.
Okay. So yeah, you tell her about your first experience receiving the signal, and she's kind of hearing you, right? She's like very much delirious and panicking. And she turns, there's like a creak as she turns one of her scrap encased arms to look at the claw. And she says I can feel everything, all of the alley, all of the street, all of the wires, and there's that crunching sound as she she tries to close her fist. So top of the turn, let's jump back to the war room and see if that signal comes back. It does not. So if you get...
Can we go meta for a second?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. I talked to Chad Prime after our first game.
Okay.
And it's actually, it works on three rolls of a type in a row. So if you had 3 good, you would go to the next stage, which is keep fighting. And then if you had another 3 good, you'd have to have 6 successes in a row to get to the surge, which is why it's so good. Which means you have to have 3 bad in a row for the signal to actually go down, and 6 bad in a row for death squads to come. So like if you rolled 5 bad in a row, but then 1 good, it starts going back up instead of going to like 4.
So
it's about cumulative successes in a row.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
So we're too deep into the signal going down theoretically, but like mechanically, I think the signal goes down between scenes anyway.
I mean, narratively, it makes sense for it to stay up because there hasn't been any like actual time between the scenes.
Sure.
It's one leading into the other.
So it would be 2/3 of its way to going down, going by the 3 roll formula. If you want to go by the other formula, I think that means what? Death Squad show up now?
No, they would show up if you fail one more time, the other formula. Okay. So I'm just trying to figure out how to track this on... Okay, I see. So yeah, so it's at the second...
Yeah, like 3 of those, kick the signal down thing next to it. 3 of those again, kick the Death Squad thing.
I see.
So it's like, if thing to the right, 3 more of the same, check the next one.
Okay, hang on. Let me make a second token real quick. So that's currently not on anything yet, but like if you failed another one, then the signal would go down, and I would put the token there to show that. And then it would have to go down 3 again to get death squads.
Yep.
Okay. I gotcha. I messed that up last time too.
It was unclear to me the first few times we played, that's why I asked him between games.
Yeah. I only edited this text, so what's my excuse? Okay. So, the signal's still up then. To add narrative crust to the past scene and the current one, what is presently happening as you're talking to her is, like, each moment you keep talking, more and more scrap, like, scrapes across the alley and latches itself to her. If this goes on for too long, she's definitely going to get buried by it. Completely encased in the scrap. And since it seems to be clinging to her, like, from how you found her in the alley, it seems to be sticking to her even after the signal's down. So if this goes on for too long, she will be a immovable block of scrap metal for the regime to just pick up and salvage. So there is a ticking clock here. That said, you hear sirens getting closer as the pressure mounts. So, Shades and Concerned Citizen are currently at 4 exposure, and Montag is at 2, because of your Elysian mesh. So, it's y'all's turn to do stuff.
I might do an aggro move early, if y'all don't mind, so we can see what happens.
Go for it.
No, go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to roll out the confront and just hearing the sirens get closer as that last speech is going on, just like, but we've got to go. Like, we've got to go. We've got to go now. If you can move that thing, there's a van. There's a van over there. Can you move in that thing? So if we stay, we're all done. We're done. We got to go. Let's see if it worked. Oh, it's a 2. Great.
Woof. Okay. Do you have a library or a memory you'd like to call on? Or a peripheral, for that matter? Those will all help you.
Not for a, but the signal's still up, right?
The signal is still up, so you can use a subroutine.
Yeah. So I'm gonna incorporate switching station while I'm talking to her, and just be like, as I'm saying, we gotta go. Try to be like pulling one of her arms back, getting behind her, and when I'm behind, like pulling back on her exoskeleton, I'm just gonna do switching station. So at least she's that much further, since she's a receiver, so she's there down the alleyway, and I kind of like swap places with her, but it's not insignificant because of how large she is at the moment with the exoskeleton.
All right. So how many successes does that add to your roll?
So that's going to add 4 for a total of 3.
Okay. So, and you
will be unprocessed.
Did our aggression move, so
Yeah.
that's
Another 5.
Yeah.
Right? So 9. So 8 total talking points.
8 total talking points from that move.
And all the others 9.
So 13. You're at 13 talking points, right?
Yeah.
That's how math works.
Yeah, we could all just go aggro and get out of the scene.
But you go up to 9 exposure.
Yeah. That's okay.
And you've rebooted, so you're at risk.
Well, if I get to 10, I still have liquid cooling.
Yeah, you still have liquid cooling.
I just need to be in the scene to activate it.
Right.
Seriously, just keep talking, everybody. Go aggro. Get her out of the scene.
Okay. I could conceivably go aggro. I try, like, some of the metal that's, that's attached to her, that, despite, because she can't control her signal, I try and pull that away from her, because it's obviously not helping her situation. So that's my aggro move. I get in there and I try to, try and pull some of that stuff away from her before she gets even more mentally unstable.
All right, go for it.
And 1 success.
All right, so that's going to be, what, 6 talking points?
Yeah, 6 talking points.
So that puts her at 19. You're 1 away. Do you have a process subroutine you can apply to that? Or a library?
I really do not.
Okay. So yeah, narrate how you like almost get her to move under her own power.
It's like, come on. I know this is hard for you, but please, just help me out here, okay? Just try and calm yourself down so this stops happening to you long enough so we can get you out of here. We won't hurt you, but you can't stay here. If the regime finds you, your life will never be the same.
All right. So we're just waiting on Montag's action now.
I will just go straight confront, and that'll get us out of the scene, and I'm not in any risk at all of going over exposure, so...
All right, go for it.
I mean, do I even have to roll at that point?
I mean, yeah, because you might process a subroutine, and, like, narratively, I think we're going to keep process subroutines for the combat after this, because it's, like, literally... It's really, like, the same scene, like, in the story space. Oh, wow. You nailed it.
I processed the liberation frequency subroutine.
Okay. Awesome. And what does it look like? How does Montag get her to believe that you're a friend and not a bunch of weird hallucinations?
I will say at that point, just with everyone else kind of pulling at her and pushing her and things like that, Montag kind of like shoos away shades and concerned citizens, like, give her some room, what's wrong with you? And he gets in front of her and kind of kneels down, makes himself seem a little bit smaller, and says, "Miss, I know this is all very confusing, but there is one reality you need to be sure of. If we stay here, we all die. No coming back from this. Whatever you had in your life before is gone, and I'm sorry it's gone. Come with us. There may be something in the future. Staying in this house, staying in this alley, there is only nothing. You have to go. There is no choice."
Okay, and she like for the first like real time in this interaction, she seems like she's actually like focusing on something. That's you, and not like all the awful shit that's happening around her. And there's you hear like this slight like crinkling sound as all the like scrap metal. So first off, like she stops sucking metal onto her, and the metal that's on her like starts to smooth out. You hear this like crunching noise as the metal moves, and like the seams on all the scrap metal becomes like more smooth and streamlined. And she sort of like goes from looking like the awful Akira scrap monster that Tetsuo, was it Tetsuo who's turning into the monster? And starts looking more like a Power Rangers villain, I guess. Like a little more like a little less awful and a little more like it looks like a costume almost. All right, it is currently 9 p.m. Central Time. Are y'all feeling up for tackling the combat scene?
I could do it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Does anyone need to?
I guess is it going to be like 3 APCs worth of
No.
troopers through machine gunners?
No, I think it's going to be the 3 guys in the alley and some reinforcements if y'all bomb some rolls. So it's not going to be a really complicated combat.
That sounds appropriate for an hour. I can do that.
Yeah. Okay. And y'all want to take a quick 5-minute break before we do that to like rehydrate and whatnot?
Yeah, that would be great.
Sounds good.
Okay. So let us reconvene at like 9:06 Central Time, and we will tackle this combat that's happening. Stay tuned for the conclusion of this episode of Crescent City Signal.
See you guys soon.
Alright, now that my cat vacated my lap, I can get my whiskey.
Was your cat in your lap this whole time?
Not for about half the time. It's about half the time. Okay, I should actually work on getting the scene set up.
All right, let's do it to it.
All right. Technically, have a couple more minutes left of break. Going to move everyone over to the combat sheet. Okay. So, the way that combat works is instead of there being waypoints you progress towards or talking points, you are putting exposure on enemy combatants. And instead of there being a flat value that increases every turn, increases your exposure every turn, rather, each at the top of each round, I, the game master, decide who the enemy's target. So each of these Freedom Fist patrolmen, they're Freedom Fist regulars, so they each can assign 3 exposure to a single target. The guy who was in the APC got off the machine gun, so that isn't something you have to worry about. It's just the 3 patrolmen who at this point have their rifles to bear. Additionally, I suppose you also have the mystery receiver with y'all, who is not helpless, although she is new to her abilities.
So she can get involved to a reasonable degree.
I think she's mainly going to be rolling deny and... Or not deny. I need to remember what the names of all the things are. So I'm looking at a player sheet. She's mainly going to be rolling in combat. It's regroup and suppress. So she's mainly going to be helping to keep y'all's exposure down. And to keep her exposure down as well. She's not, like, freaked out or panicked or, like, doesn't have enough conviction to, like, try to hurt someone right now. Even though she has these, like, awful scrap metal claws at the moment. So I think well, it's up to y'all. Are y'all trying to go out the way you came to get back to Sutherland's van, or are you going to try to, like, flank around? Because that answer is going to determine, like, where the firefight starts.
Well, given that is the signal being jammed right now?
We're gonna find out. I'm gonna roll Signal Wars to find that out. So again, in the stories, like, mechanically, normally the signal goes down between scenes, but in the story space, I think it makes sense for it to be treated as one continuous scene, in terms of, like, the signal's persistence.
Yeah. All right, so basically we're expected to make a decision on how we're going to move forward before you make that roll.
Yeah, it's just mainly a narrative detail. It's sort of setting up the setting of where the firefight is happening.
All right. Given everything we've just been through, I would be okay with trying to sneak around these Freedom Fist officers and get to Sutherland's land and get back to our base.
Okay, so I think then what happens is you're like trying to go out around. So you're cutting through the street on the other side, so opposite of where you came in, and you turn the corner, and there are two Freedom Fist regulars with their rifles. They're sort of waiting for you, and you hear a click of Freedom Fist radio from behind you as the third one is coming in from behind you. These aren't the same three you saw out in the street before. This is like the rest of their patrol circling in on the, glowing signal light that was coming off the mystery receiver. Patrolman Charlie. So Charlie and Rupert are the pair who are in front of you, and Oscar is coming in behind. Charlie. Which of you is like most physically imposing? I guess you're like a preppy college graduate and a couple of reporters. So I guess none of you are like outwardly combat focused. Yeah, maybe a graduate.
Well, I'm concealing like a lot of punk band tattoos on my arms right now, so I've seen my fair share of fights.
Okay, so you want to say that like Concerned Citizen looks the most like rugged?
Probably look the most rugged.
Okay.
Just like, but that's not just like maybe just a little more rugged than the others.
Okay, so Charlie and Rupert both opened fire at you. So that's going to put your exposure at 6 starting out. This isn't like damage. It is the like threat of bullets flying through the air. So no one's hit yet. Patrolman Oscar takes aim at whoever is in the rear most. So who's like bringing up the rear behind the new receiver?
Like Shades never goes and behind. Like Shades always tries to be moving ahead.
Okay,
so narrowly, I don't think he'd do that. I mean, sorry, Montag.
I mean,
it happens.
Yeah, I mean, if Montag, if you want to say that like you were also in front, then you could have just been trusting the receiver to be behind you, and then she would be the target. So it's up to you.
No, I would say Montag would definitely be the sort that would make sure that everyone ahead of him is moving ahead.
Okay.
Unimposed. He would be guarding the rear.
Okay, so you're gonna go to 3 exposure as Patrolman Oscar opens fire, catching all of you in this like crossfire. What do you do? I'm gonna have the mystery receiver act last, I think, because she's like not in a spot to take initiative. So go for it.
Well, I immediately regroup because they're shooting at me and my exposure's at a 6.
All right, go for it.
All right, I'm just making sure. Yeah. And I fail.
Ugh. Okay.
Signal's up. Do you have a separate team that can help?
Wait, is the signal up right now?
I forgot to roll the war room.
First off, actually, now that I think about it, I forgot. This has already been on my character sheet, but I have Ghost Mesh as my blade, so my exposure is already down to 5. I get -1 exposure. I forgot to mention that earlier.
Is Ghost Mesh for combat?
Yeah, it's for combat. -1 exposure at the start of each combat round.
All right.
I apologize.
Isn't that a siege mesh?
Yeah, Ghost Mesh is the one for evasion, I thought.
No, it's. Are you sure it didn't? I thought it said it any combat in the book. I might be.
Let me look in the book I have here in front of me.
Yeah, Siege Mesh is the combat one. It's on 144.
I mean, if that's the one you intended to grab, then we can say you have Siege Mesh and not Ghost Mesh, and we can change your character sheet between sessions.
No, it's already on my sheet. It was on my sheet before.
No, right. I'm saying, like, if that's not the one you intended to take, then we can say you have Siege Mesh and change it.
Yeah, if I read that wrong. No, I intended to take Ghost Mesh. If I interpreted that incorrectly, okay, yeah, I am really dumb. Okay, I apologize. No,
they're all related. No worries.
I'm gonna keep that, but
Okay. I mean, it would have meant that, like, you were at less risk during the evasion scene earlier. But you still have. Let me roll Signal Wars real quick, because I forgot to do that. All right, the signal is up.
Okay. So yeah, except I've run away. I've tried to run away, but they've both followed me.
Hang on. So you duck behind a corner, and they just like nail that corner with machine gun rounds.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, at minus one successes, so at one failure, there isn't the GM describes what the failure looks like, but the scene doesn't escalate. So if you had two failures, then a new. I'm sorry, my cat's just knocked for a bunch of shit that probably made a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I was saying, so at like net 2 failures, a new combatant would enter the scene. But as it stands, it's just the failure gets narrated. So the next person to act can go.
Dad, you want it or?
Now, what are you going to do, Montag? I'm looking around trying to figure out, like, what do I do?
Montag is pulling out a submachine gun from under his coat, and he is returning fire.
All right. Is that aggression or guile? I hear.
Let's say this is guile. He'll be smart about this and take cover first before trying to take some shots out from there.
All right.
Wow. So
I see 3
4
successes. Oh, do you have a peripheral?
Oh wait, no, not for flank, not for flank.
Okay.
So yeah, 3 successes. Does anyone else have any guile subroutines they would like to process?
Yeah, I'll process switching station again if you don't want it.
Yeah, go ahead and process switching station. I already have 2 that are processed, and I'm actually going to use one for this.
All right. Cut loose.
So
Wait,
I am going to. Yes.
Hang on. I don't think you can process subroutine if you use one for the roll. I think that's a rule. I'm not.
I thought it's just you cannot use a subroutine that you have just processed. Like you can't
That
process
might
it and
be it.
then.
Chad Prime in chat just said correct, but I don't know who he was responding to. Or was that an old correct?
I don't know. Hold on.
We have the author on the line, so might as well take advantage.
If anyone's going to give us the right answer, it's going to be him.
Right. Okay, yeah, he already had one processed, we can use it. But does the roll still process a subroutine, or does it not process? But it still processes one.
Yeah, I can still process one so long as I have enough successes without using the subroutine to process, and then I can still use a different subroutine I already have processed.
Okay. So yeah, so switching station is processed, and you get to use your thing.
I'm going to use my wall of sound that I processed at the beginning of all this, where nearby radio antennas emit an invisible sphere of kinetic force that radiates a few meters from its source that can protect or harm. And Montag is going for harm. So adding 5 successes on top of that 3.
Ouch.
He is going... Yes, he's going to use his submachine gun to make those officers duck for cover. And then he is going to reach into the stream of radio microwaves that he can feel and direct one of them to just slam into the side of their cover, destroying it and making sure that they duck and run.
Okay, so you're using that on Patrolman, Charlie?
We'll say Charlie. Sure, we'll just go top to bottom here.
So that's 8 exposure?
That's 8 exposure.
All right. So... Okay, so yeah, Chad Prime in chat is noting that if you execute a subroutine, you cannot process one. So switching station doesn't get processed.
Yep.
That's the rule I thought was in place. Okay. So yeah, the radio waves rip out through the cover Charlie ducked behind, leaving him exposed to shades.
Yeah, I'll flank him.
All right.
Very good.
Now the good rolls are coming out.
There we go.
Damn.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm just like still at a loss. Like I would have preferred running straight for the van, but I'm clearly out of my league. So seeing concerned citizen take a dive, I was ready to like throw in the towel. But then Montag like rips one of these guards to shreds along with all the cover for the first 2. And I'm thinking I just take out the pocket 9 and add to the hail of bullets, finishing off Patrolman Charlie and processing switching station.
All right, Patrolman Charlie falls limply to the ground, done in by Shades in the stylish gray overcoat with the Tech 9. So the mystery receiver...
It's a pocket 9. It's a pocket 9.
Pocket 9. So like it's a holdout.
Stole it from his dad on the way out.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's in the coat pocket.
Very different weapon from a Tech 9.
Truly.
Okay. The mystery receiver steps up behind concerned citizen, and she like puts one of her claws against the small of his back, and she attempts to regroup by transferring some of her armor to him. So I think she actually has a lot of valor, so... Okay, so she flubs that roll. So like she doesn't have like quite a grasp on her powers yet. And like the scrap from that's expanding out like just latches onto his back and doesn't actually like get to cover his torso in any way that actually protects him. And she just sort of like curses under her breath like, the fuck am I even doing? All right.
It's okay. You're still figuring this out.
So it's the top of the round. Patrolman Charlie is lying lifelessly on the ground. Rupert, his partner, attempts to avenge him and fires off at Shades. So Shades is going to increase his exposure to 3.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar taking up the rear is a little freaked out by the woman covered in scrap armor and opens fire at her. So her exposure is going to go up to 3. And it is y'all's turn.
I'll take the lead here, and I'm going to use suppress in order to try and reduce the exposure of Citizen and Shades, as Montag has Aegis Eyes, that he's able to apply his suppress successes to 2 allies instead of 1.
Fancy.
And I'll go next because Shades has decided he's just going to follow Montag out of this battle.
All right. I see 2 successes.
I see 2 successes, yes, and I suppose that's good enough for now.
Oh, I forgot Signal Wars again. Hang on. Let me.
Oh yeah, every time.
it can't go down. The signal can't drop. But it matters for other stuff. Okay, so it's gonna shift back down on the track 1 space.
So it's still up.
It's still up. But it's 1 away from going down.
Okay. Fair enough. Then yeah, Montag is just moving from ducking behind these buildings here, and decides at that point, seeing that the patrolmen are unloading onto his allies, he just peeks out from behind the corner and empties the entire clip of his gun, just to force them to duck and stop shooting for a moment.
All right, so that's going to decrease concerned citizen and Shades by 2.
Yep.
So Shades is at 1 exposure, and concerned citizen is at 4 exposure.
All right, and then seeing, just again, kind of like following the lead of wherever Montag's firing, I'm going to go aggro on Patrolman Rupert.
All right, you're diving right into that.
Yeah. All right. So,
Oof.
here's how we're going to do it. We are going to, let's see, is there anything I can do about that? No, but what we're going to do is, since Rupert's already fired at me and has taken his eyes off of concerned citizen and chose not to fire concerned citizen, I'm going to process, or I'm going to execute switching station, pop up, boom, right where concerned citizen was, lying on the ground trying to take cover. And it's going to totally just freak out Rupert, but it's also going to like throw off my aim in ways I didn't think of. And, I'm just going to keep squeezing rounds off of him and take the, let's see, what do we have here? We have -1 success, but I'm going to get 4 total because of the aggro, and then another 4 from Guile, so 8 to him.
All
I'll
right.
go up 5 exposure.
So Shades is currently at 6 exposure. Patrolman Rupert is at 8 exposure. Patrolman Oscar is at 0 exposure. Alright, concerned citizen, I believe you have not yet acted this round.
I have not. And I'm gonna go aggro on Patrolman Rupert and help out Shades here.
Thank you.
Alright.
And I have 3 successes.
You have 2, because there's a botch in there.
I have 2, right? Okay, because of
+5,
Yeah.
so that's 7.
Yeah, so that's more than enough to take out Rupert.
Yeah.
So how does that happen?
I pull out my pistol and I shoot him square in the chest and head, finishing him off.
So it's like the like 3 rounds, 2 in the chest, 1 in the head type deal.
Yeah, that kind of.
All right, he thuds to the ground. Your final bullet shattering the freedom fist, the white freedom fist like skull mask he's wearing, revealing the face of a shockingly young man. Right. It is the mystery receiver's turn. Again, she's going to try and like use her power to like throw up some of her scrap armor around you. She is going to attempt to suppress. Alright, and that's going to decrease your exposure by 2 as, so, like, she's no longer, like, she's, like, focusing, like, more on her power, and, like, the scrap, like, crawls, like, bits of scrap crawl off of her arm, like, sort of, like, weird, metal centipedes, and, like, surround, your torso like armor.
Cool.
Alright, top of the round. Charlie and Rupert are down. Oscar is going to duck behind cover and let off, like, he switches his rifle to full auto and just, like, blasts at concerned citizen, which is going to put them at 10 exposure, I believe.
Oh, shit.
So it's going to be a potentially lethal, or at least hurting, barrage of bullets, unless someone can suppress. Also, like, narratively, Patrolman Oscar is terrified. This is going to be my reminder to all of you that when you get successes, you can describe your successes in whatever terms that you like. So if your receivers want to command Patrolman Oscar to take off their mask and walk away, and that is the thing that puts them above 10 exposure, they will do that. But it's up to y'all how you approach dealing with the last remaining Freedom Fist patrol guy. So, it is your turn.
Well, I'm gonna roll a regroup.
Alright, go for it.
And nothing.
Do you have a library or a memory you can use?
Yeah, actually, I remember my parents. I remember them being completely carried away by the fist for protesting their working conditions out in the open. And never seeing them again, and that makes me run even faster to get away from this barrage of bullets that's at me.
Okay, so that's going to turn your non-botch failed dice into successes. So that's going to be a total of 3, which will reduce your exposure to 7.
Okay.
Nice.
Alright, who next?
I'm waiting to see whether Montag like shoots this guy or what.
Yeah, we'll see what Montag does here. I am actually going to storm. Now that we are nearing the end of this, Montag is basically going to break from cover and get pretty aggressive with this.
All right.
Montag does terribly.
I mean, so that's still at least 4 exposure on the guy.
It is, and I'm also going to use my last processed subroutine for this.
Alright.
Which is the liberation frequency. It's going to add 3 more successes to that roll. So that should put me out of the fail state.
Yeah, it puts you at... Yeah, it does.
Okay.
7.
Yeah, and the liberation frequency has a seismic roar emitting from any device in the area capable of receiving radio transmissions. And Montag is going to hone in on that Patrolman Oscar's radio, his radio for contacting the rest of his squad mates, and it's just going to keep blaring over and over and over, "Take off your fucking mask."
All right, so... Sorry, go on.
That was it for me.
Okay. So Oscar is at 7 exposure. Montag is at 8. Patrolman Oscar is still like firing his rifle wildly, and he definitely seems off his balance. But like too disoriented to like follow your orders at the moment.
Yeah.
Is that everyone, or is Shade's not acted yet?
No, I haven't gone yet. I always go after Montag in this scene. I'll flank him.
All right.
All right.
Nice.
Well, it's just 2, right?
Yeah, so he's at... They'll put out 9
Okay.
exposure.
Yeah, so while he's kind of reeling from the radio and blind firing, I'm going to sneak and dance up and try to knock him out with the butt of my pistol, seeing that Montag's gone non-lethal here, not wanting to be like the guy who starts shooting again. But I'm horrible at this. I hit him in the wrong spot, and so it's super ouchy, but he's still conscious.
All right. The mystery receiver, like, sees what's happening. She sees that this guy is, like, teetering on the brink. And, like, the officer starts to spin, and turn his rifle onto Shades, and she acts. She, like, flings her arm forward, and, like, sharp bits of scrap fly off like darts. And she's going to go aggro on this guy. Which I'm going to say her aggression's 4, just because it's a nice even number. Alright, so the officer is, like, pinned to the wall he was trying to take her behind by these bits of scrap metal. He's not dead, but he is completely immobilized and bleeding out. So that is the end of the combat scene. Y'all have an opening to, like, clear out and get to Sutherland's action van. You know that there are other patrolmen closing in, so that, like, Patrolman Oscar will probably get medical attention if you leave him there. He's not at any more risk being left here than he would be if you, like, brought him with you. So I'm assuming you don't.
On the way out, Montag will leave him, but he will take off his mask and drop it to the side before they leave.
Yeah, the patrolman is still conscious under the mask, but, like, going into shock. And he looks up at you with his eyes unfocused. And, like, there's his expression is like a mix of, like, contempt and relief. And he slumps over, going unconscious as you step away.
Montag gives him a little 2 pats on the cheek and says, "Go home. Don't come back." And then goes to join the rest of his comrades.
All right. You make your way back across St. Claude Avenue to Sutherland, who sort of, like, anxiously... Sutherland's, like, broken... He's, like, pulled a a like pump shotgun out from under his seat, and is sort of like just waiting patiently in the van for y'all to come back. And he looks kind of relieved when he sees you, and then a little like shocked when he sees the new receiver. And he sort of like, without any like outward comment, he like gets out of the driver's seat and opens up the back of the van and helps you haul her into the back, because like she's heavy. Like, the van like visibly like the suspension like goes down as she gets in, and you peel off towards Resistance HQ, leaving the distant sirens of the Freedom Fist behind you in the oppressively humid and muggy New Orleans night. Alright, you successfully recovered a new receiver. Congratulations. Before we adjourn, I want to hop you back over to the war room. We're actually let's go over to actions and favors first, actually. So, strategically, or like structurally, the way that Sigmata works is in a cycle of missions. You start off with a mission to oppose a regime action. In the case of our campaign, our last session was Skunk Works. The regime is nearing completion of a facility or project that stands to disrupt the resistance locally or regionally. If they had failed that mission, they would have lost resistance fighters. But they succeeded, so they did not sustain that loss. This mission was a resistance action, specifically the Sigmata. Someone in the region just experienced the Sigmata. The receivers need to find them before the regime does. Alternately, they need to follow up on rumors of a monster or gifted person who might be one of their own, and the reward for success on this mission is +1 to the Resistance Fighters track. So now I'm going to jump over to the War Room and show the Resistance Fighters track. So the coin tracker here has 3 different tracks. One tracks the Resistance's reputation with the local population, so the residents, in this case, of New Orleans and the greater New Orleans area. The second track is the strength and organization of the local resistance fighters. So this is like how many people are actively aiding the resistance, how well supplied they are, and how well trained they are. So this increases by 1. And then the third track is the reputation of the resistance with the international community. So as each of these tracks increases or decreases, it affects the signal strength, which is the target number to roll under to have the signal strengthen during missions while the signal's up. So, jumping back over to the actions and favors page, realize I'm jumping you all over the place real quick. The next mission, depending on a roll I'll make between sessions, will either be a favor for one of the resistance factions, or the fallout for one of the resistance factions doing something bad. So I'll make a loyalty check between sessions to see which one of those it is. So, how did everyone enjoy the session?
I enjoyed it a lot. We got to experience all 3 types of scenes in one session.
That wasn't on purpose, but it was fortuitous.
It was good. I like the pacing of the 10 waypoints and then the 20 talking points was good.
Yeah, the quicker I like the quicker scenes as well.
Yeah.
Don, any closing thoughts?
We got another receiver, so it's a pretty big way to begin this. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's do outros. Nathan, where can people find you on the internet if you want them to find you?
I really don't have anything where I would actively want people to find me.
That's fair.
You can find me in the Sigmata Discord. My username there is Nathan J. Caboose. And if you guys want to say hello to me, that would be the best place to find me.
All right, Don, what about you?
Same thing. I don't really have anything else too big on social media or any other type of broadcasting. However, I too can be found on the Sigmata BBS Discord, where I am actually your sysop. And I'd be more than happy to welcome any new members that join in after this and get you guys set up.
All right, Chad Secundus.
First, I was just gonna say it was life-changing for Shades, and he's gonna give the lighter back to Midas, but not the coke. Discord server is a great place to find me. If you find me there, you'll find my handle, and you can find me all over the internet after that. When you talk about, games and opening up societies and making things better places.
Awesome. I have been your game master with Resistance HQ. I'm Michael. If you want to find me on Twitter, my handle there is Viking_powered, past tense power. And I am also in HQ on the Sigmata Discord. I'll post a link to get to the Discord on Twitter in a moment. And thank you all for listening in and for playing. This has been really fun.
So are we up to doing this again, like in a couple of weeks, or?
Yeah. I will be in touch on the Discord to schedule the next session. I think for now every 2 weeks is good. And we can discuss further scheduling on the Discord.
All right, sounds good.
All right, comrades, repeat the signal.
Thank you, everyone in the Twitch.
Repeat the signal.
Repeat the fucking signal.
Repeat the signal.